The war did not begin with explosions or warnings. It began with silence, the kind that made even the stars seem afraid to shine. For years, the Galactic Union believed that humanity was nothing more than a primitive species from a dangerous planet called Earth. A death world, as the aliens named it. They had heard rumors, of course. Stories whispered among traders who had seen humans fight, survive, and adapt like no other species. But no one believed those stories. To them, humans were just another aggressive species that got lucky with evolution, until the day the Union decided to bring them under control. Commander Jarin of the Valkyrie fleet stood on the bridge of his warship, staring at the holographic map of Earth. His 6 eyes blinked slowly, each one focused on a different data stream. He had fought in more than 20 campaigns across the galaxy. To him, this was supposed to be an easy mission. Subdue a small planet, make the humans surrender and move on. But something felt wrong. The humans didn't seem afraid. They didn't send diplomats or beg for peace. Instead, they stayed quiet. No signals, no surrender, no warning, just silence. And that silence made the Valkyrie nervous. On the other side of the planet, in a hidden bunker deep under the mountains, Colonel Sarah Reeves was watching the same holographic sky. She had seen the Valkyrie ships arrive. Her face was calm, her eyes sharp. Around her, a group of young soldiers waited, their hands trembling not from fear but from excitement. "They think they're hunting us," Sarah said quietly. "They have no idea what kind of planet they just walked into." The soldiers smiled. Everyone knew Earth was dangerous, not because of its weapons but because of its people. The humans had grown strong by surviving everything their planet threw at them: storms, quakes, beasts, diseases, and wars. To them, survival was not a skill. It was their nature. High above the planet, the Valkyrie fleet began its descent. Thousands of ships broke through the atmosphere, their engines roaring like thunder. Commander Jarin watched as they formed a perfect line over the Pacific. His voice echoed through the comms. "Begin the operation. Take control of the surface within 2 hours." His officers obeyed. Drones flew ahead, scanning the terrain. But then something strange happened. One by one, the drones started to vanish. The signals cut off. Static filled the screens. "Report," Jarin demanded. "Where are my scouts?" No answer. Only silence again. Then, a faint transmission came through. A voice, human, calm, and cold. "You wanted to see what humans can do," the voice said. "Welcome to Earth." Before the Valkyrie could react, lightning struck across their ships. Not natural lightning, but electromagnetic bursts, strong enough to fry entire systems. Within seconds, dozens of ships lost control and crashed into the ocean below. Jarin shouted orders, his tentacles hitting the control desk. "Shield up! Restore power!" But it was too late. The humans had already begun their counterattack. From underground silos, Earth's defense weapons launched. Not large, not flashy, but precise. Satellites fired concentrated energy beams straight into the weak spots of the alien crafts. The Valkyrie fleet, used to slow-moving enemies, was not ready for such speed and strategy. Meanwhile, on the ground, human forces moved like ghosts. They didn't fight in open battlefields. They fought in forests, mountains, cities. Every shadow became a weapon. Drones disguised as birds attacked from above. Soldiers in adaptive armor vanished into the smoke. Jarin couldn't believe what he was seeing. Every tactic he tried failed. The humans were unpredictable. They attacked, disappeared, and attacked again from somewhere else. It wasn't just chaos, and it was art. "They're adapting," one of his officers whispered. "Every minute they change strategy." Jarin's voice trembled with disbelief. "Impossible. No species learns that fast." Back in the command bunker, Colonel Reeves watched the chaos unfold through the satellite feed. Her voice remained calm. "They think this is war," she said softly. "But this is just survival. And that's what we do best." Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains as alien ships burned in the sky like falling stars. The world was watching. Humanity had been called monsters before, Deathworlders, savages, threats. But for the first time, the galaxy was seeing what that really meant. And as the first night of battle began, something changed in the stars above. The aliens, once confident and proud, began to fear what they could not understand, a species that didn't fight to conquer, but fought because surviving was all they had ever known. The war had only just begun. But already the Valkyrie realized one terrifying truth. Humans weren't fighting for glory. They were fighting because this was home. And on this planet, nothing survives unless it learns to fight back. The sky was still burning. Broken pieces of alien ships fell like metal rain, crashing into the oceans and deserts of Earth. The night glowed orange and blue, and for the first time in centuries, humanity was united. Not against each other, but against something from the stars. In the Valkyrie command ship, Commander Jarin paced across the bridge. Smoke rose from damaged panels and the sound of alarms echoed everywhere. His officers worked frantically, trying to restore communication. Every screen flickered with interference. "This can't be real," one of them muttered. "They were supposed to be primitives." Jarin turned sharply, his 6 eyes narrowing. "Primitives don't bring down half a fleet in 1 hour," he said. "We underestimated them." He watched the planet below, a world of clouds and oceans, mountains and storms. It looked peaceful from above. Beautiful even. But now he knew the truth. This world was a trap disguised as paradise. Far below, in the ruins of an abandoned city, a team of human soldiers moved through the fog. Their boots splashed quietly in puddles. Every sound echoed between the broken buildings. The team leader, Sergeant Mason, raised a hand. Everyone stopped. "There," he whispered. "Movement." Through the mist, a shadow appeared. Tall, armored, and unlike anything human. It was one of the Valkyrie scouts. Its body shimmered with dark blue scales, its helmet glowing faintly. The alien was searching the area, scanning the ruins with a strange device. Mason's heart raced. He had trained for years, but seeing an alien up close felt unreal. He whispered into his comms, "Target in sight." "Permission to engage?" Colonel Reeves's voice came through the earpiece, calm as ever. "Negative. Observe first. We need to learn how they move." The team stayed hidden as the Valkyrie scout crouched near an old car. It studied the metal curiously, touching it with clawed fingers. Then, from behind the vehicle, a small sound echoed. The soft bark of a stray dog. The alien turned instantly, weapon raised. But before it could fire, the dog darted out, growling. The scout hesitated. It had never seen such a creature before. Small, fragile, and yet unafraid. And then, before anyone could react, the dog attacked. The alien stumbled back in surprise, trying to shake it off. Mason's team couldn't help but stare. The dog, tiny compared to the alien, refused to let go. Finally, the alien threw the animal aside and raised its weapon again. But that 1 second of hesitation was enough. Mason moved. His rifle hummed with blue energy as he fired a single shot. The blast hit the alien's weapon, knocking it away. The team opened fire, fast and precise. Within seconds, the scout was down. "Target neutralized," Mason said, breathing heavily. He glanced at the wounded dog. "Get that brave little guy some help." Back at command, Colonel Reeves watched the footage live. "So that's what they look like," she murmured. "Strong, fast, but emotional." They hesitate. A young technician beside her frowned. "Ma'am, why would an advanced species hesitate over a dog?" Reeves smiled faintly. "Because they don't understand courage. Not like we do." Meanwhile, on the Valkyrie ship, Commander Jarin received the report about the fallen scout. His voice trembled with disbelief. "A single ground team. Destroyed one of ours?" "Yes, Commander," said his officer quietly. "They use strange tactics, fast, unpredictable. They even risk their lives to protect smaller creatures. It makes no sense." Jarin's mandibles clicked angrily. "That's not strategy. That's chaos, and chaos cannot win." But deep inside, he wasn't sure anymore. Hours passed. Across the planet, the war turned strange. The Valkyrie expected direct battles, but humans never fought that way. They struck from shadows, using the environment itself as a weapon. Collapsing tunnels. Turning rivers into traps, using storms to hide movement. In one operation, a human pilot flew his damaged jet straight into an enemy transport ship, saving his entire squad. In another, a medic stayed behind in a burning hospital to protect wounded soldiers until reinforcements came. Every act of bravery made the aliens more confused and more afraid. Commander Jarin studied human transmissions, trying to understand them. He played recordings of soldiers laughing in the middle of battle, helping each other, shouting things like, "We don't quit," or "This is for Earth." He couldn't comprehend it. "They fight even when they know they will die," he said quietly. "Why?" one of his advisors answered. "Maybe because they don't see death as defeat." Jarin's eyes widened slightly. For the first time, he felt something he had never known in all his years of war. Doubt. Back on Earth, Colonel Reeves looked up at the sky. The stars shimmered above the smoke. Around her, the soldiers were tired, but they still smiled. She knew what was coming. The Valkyrie would return stronger. The next wave would be brutal. But she also knew something else. Humans had just proven something the galaxy had forgotten long ago. That courage didn't come from strength. It came from heart. And as the night ended, the world waited for dawn. A dawn that would bring the next battle, and perhaps the beginning of something far greater. Morning came slowly over a wounded Earth. The smoke from burning ships drifted across the sky, painting it in shades of red and gray. Cities were scarred, oceans restless, and mountains echoed with the sound of distant battle. But among all that destruction, humanity stood unbroken. Colonel Sarah Reeves hadn't slept in 2 days. She stood outside the mountain command base watching the horizon. A line of dark shapes floated in the sky, the second Valkyrie fleet. Larger, deadlier, ready to finish what the first had failed to do. Her second-in-command, Mason, walked up beside her. "They're regrouping, ma'am. Looks like they're coming for a full strike this time." Reeves nodded slowly. "Good. Then we'll show them what a real fight looks like." Inside the command center, screens flickered with data. Satellite feeds, troop movements, intercepted alien signals. Everything pointed to one thing. Earth was about to face the largest invasion in history. Yet the soldiers didn't look afraid. They were focused, quiet, and ready. Reeves turned to her team. "We can't win by hiding anymore. It's time to take the fight to them." Mason frowned. "You mean, go up there?" She smiled faintly. "Exactly." Hours later, deep beneath the Earth's crust, massive doors began to open. Hidden in old bunkers, relics of the past, were ships humanity had been secretly building for years. Not graceful, not shiny like alien vessels, but powerful, human-made, built from steel, sweat, and stubbornness. They called the fleet the Vanguard. As engines roared to life, the ground trembled. One by one, the ships rose into the sky, breaking through the clouds and into orbit. The world watched live as the human fleet ascended, battered but burning with determination. For the first time, humanity wasn't just defending Earth. They were fighting back, high above the planet. Commander Jarin watched the rising human ships with disbelief. "They can't possibly think they can face us in space," he hissed. "Their technology is primitive." But when the human ships fired their first volley, the commander's expression changed. The projectiles weren't energy weapons. They were kinetic slugs, simple metal launched at near-light speeds. They tore through shields like they didn't exist. The Valkyrie ships shook under the impact. One exploded instantly, another lost power and drifted into the void. Jarin gripped the railing tightly. How is this possible?" His officer trembled. "They are using physics, Commander. No energy, no heat, just raw speed and mass. It's barbaric." Jarin's voice grew dark. "No, it's brilliant." Down below, humanity cheered as the alien ships fell from the sky like meteors. Every explosion lit up the dawn, but Reeves knew it wasn't over yet. "Mason," she said into her comms. "Phase 2. "Yes, ma'am," he replied. His squad was already boarding a transport, preparing for something unthinkable, a boarding operation. In the emptiness of orbit, the Vanguard's flagship locked onto a Valkyrie command cruiser. Grappling systems fired, connecting the two ships with heavy magnetic cables. Inside, Mason's team floated through the narrow docking tunnel. Their helmets glowed softly, faces tense. The moment they broke through the alien hull, chaos began. The Valkyrie were tall and strong, but they weren't ready for close combat. Humans moved fast, using every corner, every shadow. Blades, short-range rifles, improvised weapons, anything that worked. Mason ducked under a swing from a Valkyrie soldier and drove his knife into the alien's armor joint. Blue blood sprayed in the airless corridor. Another soldier shouted, "They're everywhere!" Mason responded calmly, "Good. Let's give them a reason to remember us." They fought room by room, hallway by hallway. The aliens used energy cannons that melted walls, but humans kept coming. Adapting, learning. Some used captured weapons, turning the enemy's own technology against them. When Mason reached the ship's control room, he saw something unexpected. fear. The Valkyrie officers didn't look proud anymore. They looked confused, broken. He raised his weapon. "You wanted to see what humans do to survive," he said quietly. "Now you know." With that, he fired. Back in orbit, Commander Jaren's ship shook violently as explosions ripped through his fleet. For the first time in his career, he hesitated. He stared at Earth, glowing blue and alive below him. "They are different," he whispered. "No other species fights like this." His advisor nodded slowly. "Perhaps they are what the old stories called them. Deathworlders." Jaren turned his gaze toward the burning human ships. "If that is true," he said softly, "then this war will not end as we expected." On Earth, the celebrations began. People filled the streets, cheering as alien debris lit up the night sky. Reeves watched the reports, her expression calm but thoughtful. She knew the victory was only temporary. The Valkyrie wouldn't stop here. Still, she couldn't help but smile. "They thought we were weak," she murmured. "Now they'll see what desperation really looks like." The soldiers around her laughed quietly. Exhaustion and pride mixed in their eyes. For once, humanity had taken control of its destiny. But somewhere, far beyond the edge of the solar system, the Valkyrie sent a message to their homeworld, a warning that echoed across the galaxy. "Do not underestimate the humans. They fight like the universe itself is watching." And in that single message, a new chapter of fear began to spread among the stars. Because now the galaxy knew, Earth was not just a world of survivors. It was a world of warriors. Space was quiet again, but it wasn't peace. The silence that followed the first major battle felt heavy, like the pause between two storms. Pieces of broken ships floated in orbit, drifting slowly in the cold vacuum. Human engineers called it the graveyard of courage. Colonel Sarah Reeves stood at the command window of the Earth Defense Station, her reflection staring back at her. She could still hear the cheers from below, from people celebrating what they thought was victory. But she knew better. "This isn't over," she said softly. "They'll be back and stronger." And she was right. Far beyond the edges of the solar system, the Valkyrie homeworld burned with outrage. The Council of War gathered inside a massive hall made of black crystal. Thousands of alien commanders stood in silence as the Supreme Elder of the Valkyrie spoke. "Half of our fleet destroyed, thousands dead by humans. A species from a death world," the Elder hissed. "This cannot be tolerated." Commander Jaren stood before the council. His armor was scorched from battle, his voice tired but calm. "They are not what we believed," he said. "They fight with chaos, with instinct. They adapt faster than any simulation can predict." The Elder's eyes narrowed. "Then we erase them before they spread. Prepare the Dominion fleet, all of it." Jaren hesitated. "With respect, Elder, if we attack without understanding them, enough." The Elder roared. "They are savages. Crush them before they infect the stars." Jaren bowed his head but said nothing. Deep inside, something troubled him. He had fought hundreds of battles, but none haunted him like this one. There was something different about humanity. Something dangerous, not because of their weapons, but because of their will. Weeks later, in orbit above Earth, Colonel Reeves gathered her team in the strategy chamber. The holographic table showed the solar system covered in red dots, enemy signals. Mason frowned. "That's thousands of ships," Reeves nodded. "The Valkyrie are bringing their entire Dominion fleet. They want to end us completely." A silence fell across the room. Then Mason grinned slightly. "Guess we made them angry?" Reeves allowed herself a small smile. "Good, that means they're scared," she pointed to the map. "We can't fight them all head on, but we can make them chase us. Split their fleet, confuse them, and strike where it hurts most." The plan was simple but risky. Lure parts of the Valkyrie armada into ambush zones spread across the asteroid belt and Mars's orbit. Humanity didn't have as many ships, but they had creativity and a willingness to fight with everything they had. Days later, space erupted again. The Valkyrie armada entered the solar system like a wave of fire. Massive ships, glowing red, spreading out across the darkness. Their engines burned like suns. Jaren watched from his command deck, feeling both pride and unease. "Begin the purge," he ordered, but things did not go as planned. Human decoy fleets appeared near Jupiter, sending false distress signals. When Valkyrie forces rushed in, hidden mines detonated, tearing their ships apart. On Mars, soldiers used the thin atmosphere to hide drones that attacked from below. and near the asteroid belt, small human ships darted between rocks, launching surprise strikes and disappearing again. It was chaos, beautiful, deadly chaos. Sharon's fleet was supposed to be unstoppable. Now it was bleeding in the dark. "Commander," shouted one of his officers. "We've lost another sector." "How?" Sharon demanded. The officer trembled. "They're improvising. They use asteroids as weapons, redirecting them toward us. Every time we adapt, they change tactics again." Sharon looked at the battle map. The humans were everywhere and unpredictable, fast and relentless. He realized something terrifying. This wasn't war to them. It was survival, and survival was what humans did best. Meanwhile, on the Vanguard flagship, Mason gripped the control stick of his fighter as alarms blared. "Another wave incoming." "Hold formation." Reeves's voice came through the radio. "Make them think we're falling back." Mason smirked. "Copy that. Let's play dead." The human fleet pretended to retreat toward Earth. The Velkari ships followed Wayne, but they didn't know that. The humans had lined their path with dozens of stealth satellites loaded with experimental EMP charges. As soon as the aliens crossed the line, Reeves gave the order. "Now!" The space around the Velkari fleet flashed white. The EMPs exploded, and hundreds of alien ships went dark at once. Engines failed, shields dropped, weapons shut down. For a brief shining moment, the impossible happened. The most powerful fleet in the galaxy was blind. "Fire everything," Reeves shouted. Human cannons roared to life. The blackness of space lit up with streaks of blue and red. The Velkari ships exploded one by one, their remains scattering like sparks. Mason's laughter echoed through the radio. That's for the first invasion. But the victory came at a cost. Several human ships were destroyed in the blast, their crews lost in silence. Reeves closed her eyes for a moment, whispering, "We'll remember them." When the battle ended, Jaren's ship drifted in silence. Only a handful of his fleet survived. Around him, the stars looked cold and distant. He finally understood. "This isn't a war of power," he said softly. "It's a war of will." He turned to his remaining officers. "Prepare a message to the council. Tell them, these humans are not enemies. They are something else, something we cannot control." One of his officers looked at him in shock. "Commander, are you suggesting—" "Yes," Jaren said firmly. "A truce, before it's too late." He looked one last time at the blue planet below. They fight like the world itself chose them. Maybe it did. Back on Earth, Colonel Reeves received the intercepted transmission. She didn't smile. She just stood there watching the stars. "They finally understand," she said quietly. "But the galaxy doesn't forgive easily." "This is far from over." Mason looked at her. "Then what do we do?" Reeves turned to face him, eyes sharp and calm. "We prepare, because the next storm is already coming." The war had paused, but peace did not follow. The silence that filled the galaxy was heavy and uncertain, and the kind of silence that hides behind fear. Weeks had passed since the great battle above Earth. The stars still held the remains of ships, human and Velkari alike, floating like ghosts of war. Both sides had suffered terrible losses. And though the fighting stopped, the wounds ran deep. Colonel Sarah Reeves stood in the observation deck of the Vanguard flagship. Below her, Earth rotated slowly, calm, blue, and alive. But her mind was far from calm. Messages from across the system came in hourly. Some ships had gone missing. Some colonies were refusing orders. Others spoke of strange signals, not human, not Velkari, but something else. "Commander Mason," she said, breaking the silence. "They're watching us." Mason stepped beside her, his uniform still scorched from battle. "The Velkari?" Reeves shook her head. "No, others. Every species that heard about the war is watching now. Some want revenge. Some want to understand us, and some want to join us." Mason raised an eyebrow. "Join us after what happened?" Reeves looked out the window. "Fear is a strange thing, Mason. It destroys some, but it changes others." Far across the stars, Commander Jaren sat inside a dim chamber on the Velkari homeworld. He was no longer in command of a fleet. Many in the council called him a coward for suggesting peace. But a few, the wise ones, called him something else. A survivor. He stared at the hologram before him, the image of Colonel Reeves. The humans had sent him a message, short and simple. "You wanted to understand us. We want the same. Meet us." Jaren had fought against her, feared her, and now he was curious. Against the orders of the council, he left the homeworld with a small ship and a few trusted soldiers. They traveled quietly, avoiding patrols, until the blue glow of Earth appeared in the distance once again. When Jarin landed at the edge of a human base in the Siberian snow, everything was still. Soldiers surrounded him, weapons ready, but no one fired. Reeves herself walked through the snow to meet him. She wore no helmet, no armor, just her uniform and a calm face. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind howled between them. "You could have killed me when I fled," Jarin said finally. "Why didn't you?" Reeves smiled faintly. "Because we don't fight enemies who stop fighting." He tilted his head, curious. "You are a strange species, Colonel Reeves." "And you are a proud one," she replied. "Maybe together we can learn something new." They entered the base, and for hours they talked. About war, fear, survival, and the nature of their worlds. Jarin learned about Earth. The storms, the volcanoes, the endless struggles that shaped humanity. Reeves learned about the Valkyrie, a species built for order, control, and perfection. "Your planet forged you," Jarin said quietly. "Every creature there fights just to live another day." Reeves nodded. "Exactly. We didn't choose to be strong. We just didn't have a choice." That night, under the cold northern sky, a strange peace began. Not between governments or armies, but between two leaders who had both seen too much war. But peace never stays long. Deep in the outer systems, another species was watching, the Dominion. They were old enemies of the Valkyrie, but even they had stayed quiet during the human war. Now they saw opportunity. In their shadowed council halls, the Krau leader hissed, "The Valkyrie are weak. The humans are distracted. We strike now, before they unite." Their fleets began to move, silent, invisible, spreading like a dark tide across the stars. Back on Earth, scientists detected strange readings near Jupiter's orbit, gravitational waves too strong to be natural. Reeves received the report in the middle of the night. Mason burst into her quarters. "Ma'am, we've got incoming." "Not Valkyrie, something else." Reeves stood up instantly. "Get Jarin. He needs to see this." Minutes later, the alien commander entered the control room. When he saw the data, his face darkened. "Those signatures." "Krall, I warned the council they would come." "How many ships?" Reeves asked. Jarin's answer was quiet but heavy. "Too many." The room fell silent. Humanity had barely survived one galactic war. Now another enemy was coming, and this one didn't fear them. Reeves looked at the hologram of the incoming fleet. "Then it's time," she said. "We stand together." Jarin hesitated, then nodded slowly. "The Valkyrie will fight beside you. Not because of orders, but because you earned our respect." Mason smiled grimly. "Guess that makes us allies now." "Not yet," Reeves replied. "We'll have to survive this first." As the alarm sounded and ships prepared for battle, something powerful was changing. Humans and Valkyrie worked side by side, sharing technology, strategy, and trust. The universe had never seen such a thing before. Two former enemies standing shoulder to shoulder. Above them, the stars began to shift as the new enemy fleet entered the system. The lights of their engines turned the sky red. Reeves stood before her soldiers, her voice calm but strong. "This is not just a war for Earth," she said. "It's for everyone who believes survival is worth fighting for." Jarin stepped beside her. "Then let us show them what Deathworlders and warriors can do together." And as the first enemy signals appeared on the radar, Earth's defenders and the Valkyrie alliance took position. The storm was coming again, darker and larger than before, but this time humanity would not face it alone. The sky above Earth glowed red again, but this time not from fire or destruction. It was the reflection of thousands of ships rising together, human and Valkyrie fleets side by side, engines burning bright like twin suns. For the first time in history, two enemy species had united under one goal: to survive. Colonel Sarah Reeves stood on the bridge of the Vanguard flagship, her face calm, her eyes sharp. Around her, officers from both species worked together, humans and Valkyrie exchanging words, commands, and plans like old comrades. The cold distrust that once separated them was gone. All that remained was purpose. Outside the viewport, the Krall Armada appeared, enormous dark ships that swallowed the light of the stars. They moved in silence, their hulls covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly. Commander Mason leaned forward. "They're here, ma'am," Reeves nodded slowly. "All ships, prepare for engagement." Beside her, Jaren adjusted the holographic battle map. "They outnumber us 5-1, he said. "But they don't know who they're fighting." Reeves smiled faintly. "Then let's introduce ourselves." The battle began with a roar that shook the heavens. Thousands of energy beams tore through space. Explosions bloomed like suns. Human railguns fired bursts of pure force, slamming into Krall cruisers with unstoppable impact. Valkyrie ships weaved between the blasts, their elegant designs now armed with human weapons. A mix of chaos and precision that no one had ever seen before. Mason's squadron of fighters moved through the battlefield like arrows of light. "Vanguard 3 to all units," he said over comms. "Target their command ships. Cut off their heads." The Krall ships fought fiercely. They used strange energy weapons that twisted gravity, pulling enemy ships apart from the inside. But humans adapted fast, rerouting power, shielding their engines, using broken debris as cover. Jaren commanded the joint fleet, his deep voice echoing across channels. "Focus fire! Use their arrogance against them! Humans, now is your moment." The reply came from hundreds of human pilots at once. "For Earth!" Their voices merged into one, shaking even the stars. Deep in the chaos, Reeves watched the main radar. A massive Krall dreadnought 3 times larger than any ship she had seen moved toward Earth. Its energy readings were off the charts. "They're heading for the planet," shouted one of the officers. Reeves' jaw tightened. "They mean to destroy everything, even if they die doing it." Mason's voice crackled over comms. "Ma'am, give me one chance." "I can stop it," Reeves hesitated. "You won't come back," he laughed softly. "Wasn't planning to. Someone's got to show them what Deathworlders really means." Before she could respond, his fighter accelerated toward the dreadnought, faster than it was ever meant to fly. Flames trailed behind him as he dived straight into the enemy's center. The alien guns fired, but he didn't stop. Inside the cockpit, Mason whispered, "For every one of us who refused to give up." Then he triggered his reactor. A brilliant white explosion filled the void. The shockwave ripped through the Krall dreadnought, breaking it apart from within. The explosion spread across the battlefield, scattering debris in all directions. For a moment, even time seemed to stop. When the light faded, the dreadnought was gone, and Mason with it. Reeves stared silently at the screen. No one spoke. Then Jaren's voice broke the silence. He gave them a story they'll never forget. Reeves nodded, her eyes wet but steady. He gave them proof. The battle continued for hours. Without their command ships, the Krall fleets began to fall apart. The humans pressed forward, joined by Valkyrie cruisers firing in perfect formation. Bit by bit, the enemy was pushed back, until the last of their ships broke formation and jumped away into deep space. And then, it was over. Cheers erupted across every channel. On Earth, people poured into the streets, crying, laughing, shouting the same word that echoed across the stars: victory. But for Reeves and Jaren, victory felt heavier than celebration. They stood together in silence, watching the sunrise over a quiet Earth. "They'll come again someday," Jaren said quietly. "Something always does," Reeves nodded. "Maybe, but now the galaxy knows humans aren't prey. We're survivors." He turned toward her. "You taught us something we never understood, that strength isn't born from perfection. It's born from pain." She smiled faintly. "And you taught us that we don't have to fight alone." Weeks later, across the galaxy, the story spread of the Deathworlders who stood against extinction, of the commander who united enemies, and of a pilot who became a legend. Some called it madness. Others called it destiny. But every species that heard it remembered one truth. When the Deathworlders fight, even the stars tremble. Years later, deep in space, a small ship floated quietly near the ruins of the final battlefield. Inside, a new generation of explorers looked out at the stars. One of them asked, "Do you think the humans were real? That they really did all this?" The captain smiled. "Real or not, the galaxy still whispers their name." The ship's engines flared, disappearing into the endless dark, leaving behind a single echo that seemed to hum through the stars. Humanity endures.